Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Wookiee's Oldies but Goodies. Today, we are reviewing the oldest game on this show to date, the legendary Pac Man. Developed and released by Namco as an arcade title all the way back in 1980, and published by Midway Games here in America, what is there to be said about Pac Man? Well, I suppose I could start with the graphics. The graphics by today's standards fall into one of two categories. Either they are ugly as sin, or they are amazing graphics for their time and are classic style graphics that even some more modern games seek to replicate. I, along with many others, firmly believe it is the latter. But before I continue talking to you about the game, I'd like to talk to you, well, about the game, or rather the Pac Man franchise as a whole, and the legacy it created. Because as I very quickly discovered while doing research for this review, there is far more to Pac Man than meets the eye. I'll try to have this next part flow together as best I can, but it is for the most part a bunch of just plain awesome facts about Pac Man. For starters, Pac Man has either appeared in or released 36 games in the 40 years since his original release. That blows my mind that such a simple game with such a simple premise could accomplish this much. And to top that off, the original Pac Man is still seeing re-releases to this day, with the most recent one releasing March 13th of 2020. And as of the time of this recording, Pac Man has been re-released and ported to almost 40 consoles. Let's see if we can name all of them, shall we? Arcade cabinet, Atari 2600, Atari 5200, Intellivision, Commodore VIC-20, Commodore 64, Apple II, IBM PC, Texas Instruments TI-99, yes, the calculator people, ZX Spectrum, Atari 8-bit family computers, MSX computer, Famicom, NES, Famicom Dusk System, Game Boy, Game Gear, Game Boy Color, Neo Geo Pocket Color, mobile phones, Game Boy Advance, Xbox 360, Wii Virtual Console, Roku, yes, Roku, what the hell? 3DS, Xbox One, PS4, PC, PS3, NES Classic Edition, and however many things the Namco Museum got released on because he was in every single one, as well as a whole host of plug-and-play consoles. Jesus Christ. But it gets better. Pac Man has inspired probably as much, if not more, merchandise than Mario. There's shirts, masks, plushies, capes, the list goes on and on. So, it's safe to say that Pac Man was a widespread critical and commercial success, and has an enduring commercial and cultural legacy. The game is important and influential, and it is commonly listed as one of the greatest video games of all time, for obvious reasons. The success of the game led to several sequels, merchandise, and 2 television series, as well as a hit single by Buckner and Garcia. The Pac Man video game franchise remains one of the highest grossing and best-selling game series of all time, generating more than $14 billion in revenue as of 2016, and $43 million in sales combined. The character of Pac Man is the mascot and flagship icon of Bandai Namco Entertainment, and has the highest brand awareness of any video game character in North America. That's pretty cool. That means that he's more recognized than Mario. That's an insane feat. Not many people could pull. Not many video game characters could pull that off. The title of the game was originally Pac Man over in Japan. It was changed to Pac Man for international release so as to keep defacement of the game down, as Namco feared people would scratch out the P and replace it with an F. Gotta say, that is hilarious, and I would probably do the same thing. But Pac Man has also inspired quite the fan base, and has affected generations of people. The creator of Pac Man originally wanted to make a game that appealed to both men and women, and he succeeded massively. In fact, the game was so popular with women that when it came time to release a sequel, they decided to release Miss Pac Man, a game that delighted thousands of girls, and probably a few boys. So I think it's safe to say the creator accomplished his original goal and made a game that appeals to everybody. Pac Man appeals to the pros, like Billy Mitchell. It scored the first ever perfect score in the history of Pac Man, an incredible 3,333,360. This, along with his work on Donkey Kong, is why he became so famous, and went on to hold his records for years, and also went on to found the Ricky's world-famous restaurant chain. He even has his own brand of hot sauce. I have yet to try it, but I really want to try it because it has Pac Man plastered all over the label, and it looks awesome. But of course, Pac Man doesn't just appeal to the pros. He also appeals to casual players like myself and other old school gamers, like Angry Video Game Nerd and Pro Jared. But then there are people who aren't pros, but like pros are completely obsessed with this game. Every franchise has people like this, the fanatics who go crazy about the game and love it to death. They buy all the merchandise, and in some cases, it's the only thing they play. Let's talk about the totally obsessed fans. Fans like Tim Christ, the man obsessed with Pac Man. On a side note, if you haven't checked out the show Totally Obsessed on YouTube yet, I highly recommend it. It's some great stuff. And I highly recommend you start with this man's episode. He is one of the craziest dudes I've ever seen, and it's awesome. But anyway, that's where I found out about Tim. He owns countless Pac Man items. He's been playing nothing but Pac Man for over 20 years. He spent $10,000 alone playing Pac Man every day on his lunch. He owns over 20 different game systems with Pac Man on it. He even wrote a song. It's titled, and I'm not kidding here, Pac Man is naked and so should you. What? That doesn't make any sense at all, but whatever. Seriously, this guy is a character and a half, and I suggest as soon as you are done with this video, go watch Totally Obsessed Pac Man to get the full scoop on this guy. It's some of the most entertaining stuff you'll ever see. Despite Pac Man releasing in 1980, the story of Pac Man, his development, and his legacy doesn't start in 1980 or even in 1979, the year of its official development start. It starts all the way back in 1976. In 1976, the Japanese division of Atari was struggling big time, so much so that they were acquired by Japanese game developer Namco. This was such a big move for Namco that they were finally able to start developing their own video games in-house, whereas before they would simply license their games out to other developers and distribute them in Japan. After the acquisition, company president Masaya Nakamura created a small development group within the company and ordered them to study several microcomputers to potentially create new games with. One of the first people he assigned was a young 24-year-old employee named Toru Iwatani. He created Namco's first game in 1978, titled GB. It was unfortunately unsuccessful, but it helped the company gain an impressive foothold in the rapidly growing video game industry. He also assisted in the production of two sequels that were both released in 1979, Bombi and Cutie Q. This was a time when the Japanese video game industry was exploding with popularity, thanks in large part to titles like Breakout and Space Invaders. Iwatani was of the opinion that arcade games were only appealing to men at the time, and I feel he was probably right. With their crude graphics and violence, they probably did turn a lot of women away at the time. Not to mention that at the time, arcades were unfortunately seen as seedy environments. For his next project, Iwatani wanted to create a non-violent, cheerful game that appealed mostly to women, as he believed that getting women and especially couples into arcades would make them into a more family-friendly environment. The game that would later become Pac Man began development in 1979, taking a year and 5 months to finish, which was the longest time for a video game up till that point. A ton of care was taken into making the game appeal to a non-violent audience, in particular women, with simple gameplay and cute character designs. When the game was being developed, Namco was underway with designing Galaxian, which utilized a then revolutionary RGB color display, allowing sprites to use several colors at once instead of utilizing colored strips of cellophane that was commonplace at the time. The technological accomplishment allowed Iwatani to greatly enhance his game with bright pastel colors, which he felt would help attract players. The idea for power pellets was a concept Iwatani borrowed from Popeye, similar to when Popeye eats his spinach. It is also believed that Iwatani was inspired by an unnamed children's story about a creature that protected children from monsters by eating them. That's pretty awesome, and I want to go look up this children's story after I'm done with this review. The four ghosts were made to be cute, colorful, and appealing, utilizing bright pastel colors and expressive blue eyes. The idea was inspired by Iwatani's previous game, QDQ, which featured similar ghost-like monsters. Iwatani specifically chose ghosts as the antagonists due to them often being used as villains in animation. The ghosts originally were all a single red color to make them indistinguishable from one another. This was added based on the request of Nakamura. Iwatani did not like this idea, as he felt the ghosts should have variety and be multicolored. He created a survey with his colleagues that had options for either single-colored enemies or multicolored enemies. No one chose the former option. Humorous intermissions between Pac-Man and the ghosts were added to keep the game's tension from lingering. Each of the ghosts were programmed to have their own distinct personalities, so as to keep the game from becoming too boring or impossibly difficult to play. The sound effects were among the last additions made to the game, created by Toshio Kai. Iwatani described to him what he wanted the eating sound specifically to sound like, done by eating fruit and making actual gurgling sounds. Upon completion, the game was titled Pac Man, based on the working title and the titular character's distinct hockey puck-like shape. Pac-Man has a widespread critical and commercial success, but it unfortunately wasn't all sunshine and roses for Pac-Man or his legacy. Pac-Man was ported to a plethora of home video game systems, as previously stated. The most infamous of these is the 1982 Atari 2600 conversion designed by Todd Fry and published by Atari. This version of the game was widely criticized for its inaccurate portrayal of the arcade version and for its peculiar design choices, most notably the flickering effect of the ghosts. Although the game proved to be a success initially, Atari overestimated the game's demand and produced 12 million cartridges, while selling only 7 million and leaving 5 million unsold. The conversion's poor quality severely damaged the company's reputation and led to the company's demise and the North American video game crash in 1983. So yes, even the best of us has a bad day or two. I played the original Pac-Man, or at least as original as an Xbox One port of an Xbox 360 port can get, for the sake of the review. But I was referred to this game Pac Man Championship Edition 2 by Editor Supreme Mr. Rune. And let me tell you, this game blew my mind. It takes the original Pac-Man and improves on it in every way possible, while still keeping the spirit of the original. It's got updated neon light style graphics, extra smooth controls, extra crisp audio and music that plays as you play. It even introduces new mechanics like bomb jumps to get out of tough situations, as well as the new minion system that turns the ghosts into terrifying centipedes. The controls are good. They could maybe use a little bit of work just to make everything a bit smoother, and I do recommend using the D-pad, as I felt like I had a bit more control over Pac-Man with the D-pad as compared to the joystick. Pac-Man's gameplay is simple, yet effective. You play as Pac-Man, obviously, and you have to maneuver through a maze eating power pellets and avoiding the ghosts Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde as they chase you throughout the map. And I think, like Galaga, this simple gameplay makes the game very fun, easy to pick up and learn, but hard to master. I already talked about the graphics a little bit, but I'll go into more detail. The graphics, like the gameplay, are simple by today's standards, but as stated earlier, were remarkable and innovative for their time, and attracted a whole host of new gamers. Today it has the benefit of its status as a legend, as well as its graphics being about as chock full of nostalgia as you can get. Yes, they are pixelated, but everyone still enjoys them. They are still bright and colorful. Ghosts especially are pleasing to the eye, and to the right person, such as myself, these graphics are beautiful and will be for years to come. The audio is nice. It sounds just like the original arcade, and just like the graphics is chock full of nostalgia. And I love the Waka Waka sound that plays as Pac-Man moves. Although I must admit, I've been spoiled by more modern games and was thrown off a bit by no music playing as I was playing the game. So, final thoughts on this game. Does it hold up today? / would I recommend it? Yes, it does hold up today, and yes, I would recommend it. I can't guarantee you will love it, as these kind of games have a reputation for being hard, but I think it's still a good game. I recommend the OG Pac-Man, but I recommend Pac Man Championship Edition 2 even more. Pick them both up ASAP. This concludes another episode of Wookiee's Oldies but Goodies. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Love, Wookiee.